Right, what I want to talk about is a term that's been coined before. I've used it before in other lectures that relate to psychology, or Psy Com. We're developing a preordained fury, if you like. This idea or terminology comes from Warrior Poet Society. Really good, it's a really good website, got a really good YouTube channel. I suggest you check it out. But I'd heard the term coined there, but basically what it means to me is cultivating preordained fury. So having a mentality trigger that triggers a much more resourceful emotional state to deal with violence than capitulation. So think about this for a second. Combative training for real world violence, and we all know that currently where we are now, 2019, violence is evolving rapidly, the threat is changing. But without getting too much into that, because we've been talking about that recently, somebody training for dealing with street violence, regardless of what it is, as a civilian, needs to understand that the level of violence you're likely to face nowadays is getting worse. So there needs to be, first of all, be an acceptance that people will be extremely fucking violent to you, extremely violent, capable of things that you can possibly fathom. You don't want to look as to the whys of that, look at it with logistics or logic. You just need to know that that's the case. And the second thing that you need to know is that currently what you're doing in terms of self-protection is potentially needs analysis, because potentially what you're doing is not going to make the grade in terms of being able to deal with that level of violence. There's a need, mainly from a mentality point of view, that you need to make a mentality shift. And that shift is your expectation of a violent event needs to increase. You need to know that somebody will be trying to end you, and your mentality shift needs to increase in terms of your willingness to employ violence to stop that. That's a personal choice. But combative is twofold. You need obviously the physical element, but you need the psychological, emotional element. You need to identify what you would be willing to fight for. And by fight for, I mean fight until there was nothing left to fight about. You should, as a sane, normal person with a good moral compass, know what you would not fight for. So I will not fight over a place in line. I will not fight for a parking space. I would not fight or take part in any event just because you don't like me, or you looked at my girlfriend, or you spilled my drink, or some shit, some trivial shit. I would not fight for that. I would do my utmost to avoid, de-escalate, escape, etc. But if you make me a cornered animal where you are going to make me fight, and I have no choice because you've robbed me of that choice, then I will fucking end you. I will have the willingness to take part until there's nothing left to talk about, or I will have the willingness to do whatever it fucking takes to prevail in that event, so that you don't hurt me and I go home in one piece. Or I'll die doing it. Die striving, as they say. But the only thing I would fight for is so that I can metaphorically get home. So metaphorically speaking, as I've said before, there's nothing more important than going home and kissing those you love goodnight every night. Nothing's more important than that. So I must prevail in any event. I cannot be taken from them. Now, of course, you could do what's necessary in a physical sense to prevail, and you could still find yourself taken, incarcerated, and separated from the powers that be. There's elements to consider. Bottom line is, all consequences of engaging in violence are fucking negative. there's a good chance that you could get hurt. You could hurt somebody else. There's a good chance that you could be incarcerated, separated from your loved ones. There's a good chance that your involvement in the event could break you financially. It's a life-changing event, whichever way you look at it. The only winning is walking away in one piece, relatively unscathed, and not in custody. And that's the only thing, really, winning part. So when I say do whatever it takes to win, we both know that there's nothing to win in terms of engaging in violence. I mean prevail. I mean get home in one piece. In terms of the law, you've got a good moral compass. You're only ever going to do what's reasonable and necessary in order to prevail. And if you've had to employ a level 10 use of force or a deadly force, then you should have and would have been fucking justified. And if nothing short of what you did would have allowed you to get home in one piece. That's all you can strive for. You can do all those things and still get fucked legally by the law. The point of this is your willingness to take part in violence. You need to define for yourself, what do you want to live for? What are the things in your life that you love so much that you could just not bear to be without? What are the dreams that you still want to achieve? What are the things that you love doing? The people you love being around? What do you want to live for? What, if anything, would you be prepared to die for? Well, probably the same things that you want to live for. I would die to protect those things, the people that I love, because they're what I want to live my life for. Deep questions. What do you really want to live for? What would you be prepared to die for? What would you fight for, no matter what, to the end? Probably the same things. And what, if anything, would you be willing to kill for? Probably the same things. Deep questions that need reflection in your own time. Once you understand those things, you will shudder at the thought of ever having to employ violence, but you will know most definitely what you're willing to fight for and what you're not. So it begins there. The next thing is, if you feel that you cannot control fear and you would capitulate in the face of real violence, that you don't have it inside you mentally what you need to protect yourself, then you need to do a perspective shift. You need to reframe how you think about that event. Maybe your self-worth is that low that you don't feel innately anyway you're worth protecting. Maybe you don't feel you have the capability of protecting yourself effectively because of limiting self-doubt, self-beliefs that were imposed upon you from a young age that you've carried around ever since. We're not computers, we can't be programmed, we're conditioned by repetition, and that includes the repetition of the way you think. So how you think affects how you feel. How you feel affects what you will do, and what you will do will affect the results that you get back. So your pre-fight perspective in terms of how you think. So by how you think, I mean your internal dialogue, how you communicate with yourself, how you think about an event in your head. How you think affects how you feel. How you feel affects what you will do. What you do will reflect the results you get back, or affect the results you get back. A classic NLP idea. So if I'm facing two people and all I can think is, oh my God, internal dialogue to myself, there's three of them, I'm fucked. Self-fulfilling prophecy, you're already ended, you're fucked. Whereas if I was to reframe that, because of the belief system that I have, add a little bit of sardonic to it, great, multiple target opportunities, golden opportunity to test my tools, so fuck you, yes I'll engage because you've given me no choice. Then that's a much better pre-fight perspective. How I think about the event that's just about to happen is much more productive in terms of how it makes me feel. It makes me feel more confident, which means I'm much more likely to access the skill set that I need to deal with the problems, and the results I get back are going to be more beneficial. In terms of limiting self-beliefs. The Jesuits said, give me a child before the age of 7, I'll make him a king. It seems to be that before the age of 7, anything is plausible in our imagination. Post 7, it starts to harden up, and we start to listen to what people tell us in a negative sense, and we start to lose belief, or we believe things are a certain way. People like us don't make money, so therefore you believe that, and you become frivolous with money because it's uncomfortable to be successful, just as one example. Any number of things apply to that. So of course, probably even without realising it from young, we will impose limiting self-beliefs on ourselves. If this applies to somebody that's unfamiliar with handling violent confrontation, they may well indeed think that they lack the minerals to control what they're feeling on an emotional sense and deal with it. In most cases, if they've never been booed at in their life or never had so much as a row with their wife, when adrenaline hits them from aggressive dialogue, let's say, as a starter for 10, when adrenaline hits their body, they'll be very confused at the feelings that they're feeling. And if they start to lose cognition, become midbrain, they just fall apart. Subconscious brain will always do what's best for you, as long as you have a choice. If you've never pre-visualized dealing with potentially violent confrontation, and you've never had the experience of dealing with previously violent confrontation, and you've never trained or simulated dealing with previously violent confrontation, then you have no blueprint in your brain. Your subconscious doesn't know what to do. So the moment that you realise, shit, I'm in a potential situation, as adrenaline hits your body, you start to become no longer cognitive. Your subconscious brain is searching the data files for information for a response. And of course, nothing's going to come. Hence, hypervigilance, freeze, it's too late and now you're in it. Whereas if you do what I'm talking about, so what I'm talking about is developing preordained fury, cultivating an emotional switch that when faced with confrontation, anything that merely replicates what you're about to face will switch you into an emotional state where you are aware, prepared and capable of dealing with violence. So you performed a crisis rehearsal, you visualised how you will operate in such a situation, imagining all the feelings that you would feel, gaining control of them and still operating effectively. That should be accompanied with physical training, taken to a point where you are put into spontaneous simulation where adrenaline is present, your training partners are completely non-compliant, adrenaline, role-play, dialogue, profanity, all of those things are in the equation, and it's therefore familiar. Once you develop a blueprint like that, your subconscious response will go with what you do, which will be much more physically active. But if you have no comprehension of those things I've just said to you, and you've not done any of them, you wasn't expecting it, there was no expectation, then you will freeze. So having the ability to develop a pre-fight plan of action that will allow you to stay relatively cognitive, calm enough, and look to, if you can't avoid an escape, be proactive in the physical sense, is going to be much more useful to you. But if you do not have such a preordained plan of action in play, then I suggest you cultivate it. And as you do that, what you will find with yourself is, where you do not have that knowledge yet, and maybe you have not had those experiences, you will probably feel quite fearful, quite doubting as to whether or not you could actually deal with violent confrontation. Well, many people feel that. The thing you need to understand is, you have to be your own bodyguard, you have to be, because no one else is going to help you. And if you can't find what you need within you to do it for you, then you've got to do it for those you love. So if you identify what do you really want to live for, the next thing to do would be to understand that any potentially violent situation that you find yourself in these days, your life could be over. You are definitely looking at high probability a weapon will be involved, potentially more than one assailant. potentially worst case scenario, multiple armed assailants, very difficult to deal with. If that is the case, and you can't find what you need inside of you to protect you, understand that you could lose. And with that loss, you could die. So the way to think about that loss is contemplating. Contemplate loss. Realise that if you find yourself in an unfortunate situation that you can't avoid, can't escape from, you can't de-escalate, and your current mental perspective is one that is derogatory, it's not going to help you through the event, then during that event you may never come back from it. You could be cabbaged for the rest of your life, you could sustain minimal injuries but be psychologically scarred for the rest of your life and never be the same again, or you could be gone, you could be taken, you could lose and you could die. Look at how many stabbings we're looking at. Look at how violent things are becoming over trivial fucking things for no reason, no logical reasons. So if you find yourself in a potentially violent event and you lose, you could die. Well, it's not rehearsal, you get one shot at life. What does that mean then? If you die, it means you've lost everything. So contemplate that loss. You never see another sunset, you never see another full moon, you never see your children graduate university, you'll never meet any goals that you've got planned, you'll never spend another sunny day on the beach with your family, you'll never have another laugh, you'll never see your people that you care about again, you'll never fulfill your dreams, you'll never do anything. It's done. It's lost. So if you can't find it within yourself to fight no matter what, so that you can prevail and get back to see another day and proverbially kiss your loved ones goodnight, then you're gone, and your loved ones are gone. So contemplate that loss from their perspective for a second now. So imagine, let's use a hypothetical example, you have a wife, you have children, and you find yourself in a situation in a subway where three guys try to rob you, you can't avoid, you can't escape, and you mentally freeze. A struggle ensues and you die. You didn't have what it takes. Despite your training, you couldn't access it and you couldn't fight, and you lost and you were dead. Died on delivery to the hospital. Now imagine, however many hours later, or whatever the time frame is later, where the police walk to the front door of your house, knock on the door, and they say to your significant other, whoever that may be, I'm sorry to inform you, but your partner's dead. Such and such is dead. Imagine their face at that moment when they see, when they hear those words. Imagine how that affects them. Imagine what their first facial expression will be due to the enormous amount of emotional pain that's just swept through their being. Think about that for a second. Then think about, inevitably, half an hour later, a few hours later, the next day, a few days, however long it is, but inevitable, when your significant other has to tell your children, Daddy's gone, Daddy's gone to heaven, Dad is dead. Imagine their immediate facial expression, immediate feelings on having the realisation of that statement. How would it hurt them? Fucking hurt them big time. Then think about the consequences somewhat longer term. So if you're old school like me, you would be a hunter-gatherer. You would be the one looking to work to put food on the table, to pay the rent, blah blah blah. And now you're gone. So your wife is potentially just whose full-time job is looking after your three children, has no means to keep the household. There's a chance 3 months down the line, they've lost the house, they've been repossessed, moved to a shitty area, has to downgrade somewhat, which is horrible. Kids are uprooted from school, go to a new school, it's going to be horrible uprooting. They may be teased, they may be bullied, but there'll certainly be emotional trauma from upheaval and a definite change in life that's going to affect those you love. That will hurt them. Fast forward a little bit, 6 months, maybe a year. Children are resilient, they bounce back, they'll always think about you often, frequently, but they laugh now. Now they play in the yard and they run around like they used to. Maybe momentarily they forget, they get sad when they remember, but they've moved on. wife's been absolutely loyal to you for a long time, but it's 18 months now and she's decided to date again. She's just met somebody else who she will lie down with at night. About how that might make you feel. And they've moved on inevitably without you, and you're just a memory. How would that make you feel if you actually took the time to sit and visualise in depth, accept all the emotional states that are going to be present that you'll come through as you think about those things? It will start like this. You will become sad, overwhelmed, you potentially eyes will well, you'll cry, you'll be upset. You might stop right there. I encourage you to push through. And then, within a very short period of time, even though it's a hypothetical story, if you shift your direction back to the reason why this horrible turmoil is taking place, and you narrow it down to the 3 fucking miscreants in an alley that decided that you were fucking having some and you couldn't deal with it. But it's because of these 3 cunts that your life is gone as you know it. Rewind. In hindsight now, how the fuck would you feel if you could metaphorically pause the button and rewind about those individuals? I put it to you, if you're worth your salt, you will feel fucking indignation. You will feel fucking outraged and angry that they took what you love. So much so that you'll recognise it as an energy resource that, if it had been with you during the event, there potentially could have been a very fucking different outcome. Because you wouldn't have capitulated with fear. You'd have been outraged that they'd have stepped to the scratch to take away everything you love. And take you away from everything you love, and everything you love away from you. You would be fucking outraged. So outraged, in fact, that you would be completely in control of fear. They say that nobody fears when angry. And what that basically means is you cannot be in more than one emotional state at exactly the same time, in exactly the same moment. So you cannot be outraged and angry and fearful for your life at the same time. It's one or the other will take precedence. So building this preordained or preconditioned fury that we talked about in the beginning, the idea of that is that you contemplate loss and think about what I just said until you feel that indignation. And then let's just say bind magic, because you're using your imagination, and you can use your imagination as you want. Let's imagine we're before the age of 7 again. It's a very useful tool. It's a virtual reality simulator between your ears, if you like. And let's imagine, and just by magic, like magic etch-a-sketch, to use Kevin Sikor's phrase, you can shake it. It clears the experience, and you get one more chance. You get one more go. You rewind back to the beginning of that altercation in that alley that you still couldn't avoid, couldn't de-escalate. And there's a need now for you to fight. But instead of capitulation, where you freeze up and into a state of hypervigilance, you access the Antichrist. And you use him, along with, in conjunction with your combative skills and the willingness to fight till there's nothing fucking left to fight about. Well, now I'm putting it to you that, yeah, there's a chance you could still lose if it's your time. If so, you'll fucking probably take 2 or 3 of them with you. Be the best, second best they've ever seen. But there's also a very fucking high probability in that emotional state that you will prevail. You will win. You will overwhelm them. Like I said, there's no winning. Violent confrontation, there's always going to be consequences. But you will prevail enough to get away, maybe still scathed and hurt, but with a high probability of survivability, so that you can now metaphorically get home that night to kiss those you love goodnight. Well, the difference in the 2 hypothetical scenario outcomes was how you thought before the event. So metaphorically speaking, simulation 1 had the subject capitulate, feel self-doubt, limiting belief that he couldn't deal with the situation. That's how he communicated with himself. And he was fearful that he was going to get hurt. So in this particular situation, he suffered hypervigilance, froze up, couldn't engage any of his skills, just in case he got hurt. And as a result, he got attacked he lost, and he died. Whereas if the high prominent mental state, emotional state at that moment would be indignation, you'd be willing to fight. You'd be willing to fight till there's nothing left to fucking fight about. Which means you could engage your skill set. And you could prevail enough to get away relatively unscathed. And they don't want no more of you. You get home. So you see, selecting the correct emotional state in the situation where it belongs, and it only belongs there. Indignation, willingness to step to the scratch, willingness to fight till there's nothing left to fight about would have been a much more useful emotional state to be in to deal with that situation if you wanted to be the one getting home. Clearly an example of how you thought affected how you feel, affected what you do, affected the results that you get back. So if you feel that you don't have it in yourself to fight for you, contemplate loss. Contemplate how it will affect those you love. That should anger you. Then use that and be willing to fight for them so that they're not hurt in that way and that you go home. It's the same in a situation where a woman is fearful of being attacked and hurt and injured within the potential of a sexual assault. If she fears being injured or being hurt, there's a good chance that she will capitulate and she won't do anything in terms of fighting back just in case she gets hurt. Now there's a good chance to get raped and potentially hurt worse. If, however, the same said lady feared rape, getting sexually violated above all else, feared rape above getting injured, feared rape and getting sexually violated as the primary main thing that she didn't want to happen, then there's a good chance that she'll do everything she can, including fight tooth and nail, so as not to get raped. In which case, there's a chance she could still get hurt if she fought tooth and nail. There's a very, very high probability that she won't get raped. So how you think, how it affects how you feel, affects what you do, affects the results you get back, but you need to identify your belief system, your values. My belief system is, first layer, self-importance. Like I said before, not self-importance in how I think I'm a hot shit, just I am too important to be taken away from those I love, and those I love are too important to be taken away from me. I must prevail. I must metaphorically get home to kiss my loved ones goodnight. Not ready to leave yet. The next layer is indignation. The fact that you would threaten all that I love to take me away from it fires indignation. It's the spark that ignites aggression. My thinking process, instead of, oh my god, what am I going to do, is how fucking dare you threaten everything I love. You step to the scratch if you want to fucking die. Fuck you. And all she wrote it on. That thinking now is much more conducive to me being able to access my skills. And the next layer on top of that comes from confidence. Confidence in my ability that I can fucking do it. If I'm doing it, therefore I'm dedicating most of my life to doing it. A good friend of mine bought me some whiskey glasses that had engraved on them, it's a mistake to offer violence to a man that's dedicated most of his life to perfecting violence. So in my case it would be that. I'm confident enough that I can fucking do it. I know me. I know anyone can lose at any time for any reason or anything. I don't think I'm a hot shit. I just know my willingness, I know my levels. I know I will control that emotional response and I will fight until there's nothing left to fight about. There's a good chance I'll prevail. If I don't, well, it was my time. So confidence would be the third layer. You need to identify your own belief system, and it begins with, what do you really want to live for? What do you really want to live for? What are the best things in your life? What would you be willing to fight tooth and nail for? Probably the things you want to live for. And what would you be willing to die for? Probably the same things. And what, if anything, would you be willing to kill for? Well, to protect that. Now you identify the only reason that you should fight. You strive to walk away from anything else. You strive to walk away from everything. But if you are a cornered animal and you are threatened, you must fight, you must prevail, you must be the one that gets home. What will magnify that for you is contemplating the loss of what you will lose if you don't. And also the trauma that that will give your family and loved ones. So, now you are cultivating through visualization and contemplation this preconditioned fury. The end result of that visualization and that exercise should see you furious. It should see you with a very different perspective that says, fuck no, this is what I train for. If this fucking comes my way, I'll do everything I can. Everything I can to get back to my loved ones. And now, if you are faced with anything that manifests itself that even remotely replicates that potential loss, if you don't act, that will spark, will switch on your preconditioned fury, if you like, will ignite it. And there's a good chance that that will seep from every pore, and unless what you're facing is fucking retarded, you will realise, no, that brightly coloured animal doesn't taste good, and they may well bypass you, abort, and victim select elsewhere. If not, and they do attack, well, they would have attacked regardless. At least now your mental platform is much more productive to dealing with the event than the previous hypothetical scenario. Food for thought.